Hey guys, this is RolloutReviews with RolloutReviews doing something long overdue. Today I'm going to show you how you can give neck articulation to your Toa Mata and Toa Nuva, just like I did in the thumbnails for their respective reviews. Now Tahu, Kopaka, Liwa, and Gali all have the same standard neck setup in both their Mata and Nuva forms, so we'll explore that method first. Pohatu and Onua are very different as far as their heads attach, so we'll take a look at that later. So there are a bunch of ways to give the Toa neck articulation. The most popular one I've seen involves sort of gutting the entire gearbox and replacing it with a connector before attaching the head to a ball joint. And you can do that, but I don't really like it because it sacrifices the gear function. And I think that's really important to the way these guys look. All of the methods I'll show you now, simply enough, involve replacing the axle in the neck. And I think that's a much better way of doing things. Before we show off my favorite method, and the one I used in the thumbnails, I'm actually going to cover a couple of alternatives. So the first one is extremely simple. Basically, you're just going to replace that axle with a short lightsaber rod. Do note that this is not the full-length version. It's about the same size as the axle in question. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, I don't think this piece comes in black, so I just have a light gray one. Anyway, just put that there, and then replace the head. This will give you a simple rotation, and in most cases, that's all you're gonna need, but I generally like a little bit more, so obviously this isn't one of my favorite options. This next one fundamentally accomplishes the same thing, but I don't like it nearly as much. If you don't have that other piece, you can use a standard Lego pistol here. And basically, you're just going to plug this into the back of the head, and then attach it there. It works, it gives you the same rotation, but it's a little bit more fiddly, and you have this protrusion out of the back of the neck. Now there's another way of using this piece. You can attach it the other way around like this, and then plug the handle of the gun into this axle here, and that'll sort of give you a little bit of tilt, but it's extremely fiddly, and you'll notice that the handle of the gun actually has a cut in one side of it. It's just the way it's molded, so if you bring it too far to the side, it'll just sort of fall off. But you do have that extra little bit of articulation if this is the only piece you have out of the bunch. This third one is actually my second favorite option. You're gonna use one of these Lego fireman hoses here. Now, this again doesn't come in black, but it works really well, so that's not too big of an issue for me. It's actually gonna attach to the back of the head at 2 points. You're gonna slide the handle into this axle hole here, and then it'll sort of click into the eye stalk there at the top. Now take note of the shape of this piece. It sort of tapers down, and so when you attach this to the neck there, you actually have a little bit of extra give. It almost works like a mini ball joint there, and it gives you a lot of expression. It's actually pretty solid, but it is pretty limited. Again, I really like this method, but I don't like it quite as much as the next one I'll show you. Finally, we'll take a look at my favorite method. You're going to need a length of flex tube, or pneumatic tubing. This is considered by a lot of Lego purists to be the only Lego piece, quote-unquote, legal to modify the length of, because in several Lego sets, it actually has you cut this piece. I think the most recent Lego set it has you do this is the Architecture Seattle Space Needle. Whatever the case, it's very bendy and very malleable. Now, it does come in shorter sizes than this. I think this is the shortest it comes. Unfortunately, it only comes in this size in some pretty wild colors. Yellow, of course, red, I think blue, and a couple of others, but it does not come in black, unfortunately. So no matter how you put it, it's going to be just a bit out of place and noticeable. Now this is actually a little bit longer than the actual axle here, but basically all I did was cut a black length of flex tube into the appropriate size here, and then replaced the axle in the neck. Now, this looks really good. It's really seamless. It's just a single black rod there. But it allows you to do crazy things like that. This can basically go all over the place. It's like having a wire in the neck, and like I said, it looks really good. It works really well. This is my favorite way of doing this, and this is the method I used in all of those thumbnails. Of course, you can use this method for the Mata and Nuva forms of the other 3 Toa that have the same neck configuration. But, as I said earlier, Pohatu and Onua are a little bit different. For Onua Mata, he has an extra neck piece here, and basically all I did for him was replace that with this piece and the same length of flex tube there. Now, both this piece and flex tube come in gray, so you can make this piece gray if you want, but for one reason or another, I just decided that black looked a bit better. Now, this is actually a bit longer than the actual piece here. You can make it the same size as this, basically just cut a piece of flex tube to be the same length as this short axle here, like that. The problem with this is that when you attach the head, there's no space in between there, so all you get is a rotation. And if you make it a bit longer, you just get a lot more movement. Now, it does make Onua a little bit taller, but personally, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he looks just fine, if not a little bit better this way, and you can move his head all the way around, just like you could with Tahu. The exact same thing goes for Onua Nuva. You just replace this piece with this. The only difference here, of course, is that it attaches to the Nuva armor with a pin axle, so you get that extra pivot along with all of the extra articulation that the flex tube provides. As for Pohatu, his original form and his Nuva form heads attach very differently. For Pohatu Mata, we're basically just going to do the exact same thing we did with Onua. Replace this piece with this piece. The only difference here is that neither of the 2 pieces that make up the replacement come in tan, so you have no option to make it more accurate like you did with Onua, so we'll just go with black here. Now, I think his neck being a little bit longer looks a lot more strange here than it did with Onua, but his neck looks super strange anyway, so again, I don't think it's too much of a problem. The fact that it's black instead of tan, though, is extremely noticeable, so maybe you might want to go with one of the other methods. I think he looks fine here personally, though. Things are a lot more simple for his Nuva form. Just like Tahu and the like, all you're going to do is replace the axle in his neck with a bit of flex tube. Once again, you can use a shorter length of flex tube so that it's the same size as the original axle, but all it'll give you is a rotation. And honestly, I think Pohatu Nuva really benefits from a longer neck here. I don't know, there's something about this that I like so much better than it was originally. Lastly, I like storing all of the original neck connectors on their person. So for Tahu, I like storing the connector in his foot. For Onua, I just take this piece and store it back here, like that. Same goes for Pohatu, like this. For Pohatu Nuva, I like just taking this little piece and putting it back here, like that. And for Onua Nuva, it's a little bit tricky because this gear is in the way here, so I sort of just slide the pin in his foot out, and for the time being, if I can get it lined up, store it back there like this. I don't know, if the pin isn't in his foot, like I have his little tread skates on, I sort of just take this piece and plug it into the side of his foot. But otherwise, I think that's the best option. Once again, there are tons of ways to give neck articulation to the toa, so if you have any really cool ones to share, definitely do so in the comments below. These are just some ways I've found that work really well, and one in particular that I think works phenomenally. So that is about it, guys, and this is IX Roll It IX, signing off.